So today I'm talking about Ayurveda and mental health. So I'll be talking about what is Ayurveda's perspective about mental health. So that's me, and I've just heard somebody saying that I look younger than this photo. So this is all because of Ayurveda. So, according to World Health Organization, about 450 million people worldwide are affected by mental, neurological, or behavioral problems. Now, that is the number which is where they have gone, and there is a clearly identified disease that can be labeled, right? But there are many more, and we know at some point of time in our life, we know that we could do better. We are not, labeled with having some kind of disease, but that mental health could be better, right? Even stress is a form of where it doesn't let us live effectively or powerfully. So if we start thinking about it, probably almost every one of us at some point of time would have experienced something like that. And for Australian numbers, almost 1 in 5 Australians surveyed in 2007, this is the Australian Bureau of Statistics numbers, that they had experienced some kind of disorder in last 12 months. And mental illness are the third leading cause of disability burden in Australia, according to, again, Australian Bureau of Statistics numbers, and 27% of the total years lost to disability. And, you know, you might think about when you are not feeling good within yourself, just at a very basic thing, you're not most efficient and productive, whether it is work or home or relationships, yes? So even though technically we don't have any disease, but it takes away that juice of life, so to speak. And Ayurveda provides a comprehensive view of human personality that is far wider than where even modern medicine is operating from at the moment. And that's what I'm going to give you some concepts of Ayurveda that we would see. So we talk about 4 aspects of human life, and they are, Ayurveda defines the Ayu or life as the intelligent coordination of the 4 parts of life, which are body, senses, mind, and soul. As a medical system, it talks about soul. And if you look at this, we are going from gross to subtle. So body is the most gross aspect of who we are, and then are the senses, which are the gateway between inside and outside. If we had no senses, there is no nervous system sending the messages, or the senses are not taking in through the outside world and sending the messages inside, we would have no idea. So it's a bit more subtler than the body. And then the next is the mind, which is subtler than the senses. And then comes the soul, which is, we say, is the director of, which is leading our life. Now, if you look at it, body, just the physical body is 25%. Rest all is subtle and non-physical, yeah? So we are living a lot at the non-physical level, and Ayurveda, with this understanding, takes a lot of notice of what is going on inside as well. And even though the mind is, soul is the director, but it is being guided by the mind. The mind has the capacity to take us towards the pathway of the soul, which is the inner knowingness that we have, and or it can take us to body and senses. And that sense of soul, you know, we all have and use it at a certain level. For example, when I say, my whole body is aching, so who's that I who's saying my body is aching? Who's that? What are we referring to? It is there in our day-to-day language. right? But who is that who's saying, oh, my body is aching, or my head is all frazzled, and I'm so, so who's that? What are we referring to? So Ayurveda gives that as a word. You can call it a higher being, you can call it soul. I mean, in Ayurveda we use the word soul, but any word that you can do, but there is something different from the body, from the mind, from the senses that is saying I. Yes? And it is there in our day-to-day language if we start noticing. And so that aspect of our being is what we call it soul. And then, but the mind is the one that is taking us towards that pathway, the soul, the inner knowingness, the inner being, but it's the mind which is taking us through its own, giving directions, it is going there. And the mind is, another concept that I'm introducing here is the inner instrument. So this is the mind operating in these 4 different modes. So it's not 4 different corners or types, but it is different modes of operation. It is like you are here practitioner, but you are also a sister or a brother or a partner. You have different modes of operation. So mind is operating in these 4 modes, and this is what we call as the inner instrument. And that inner instrument, the first one is the memory, or chitta is the Sanskrit word for that. So again, when you think about the memory, for example, it is that memory that troubles us a lot, isn't it? At some point of time, we decided, okay, all men are like that, right? And that memory of how was the experience of being men, around men, is still leading our life. So when we are going and talking to a man, we are not talking fresh all the time. There is that whole memory of how the men behave, or how the women behave, or how my mother behaves, or whoever that is. That is operational all the time. So that is the memory aspect. And then the second one is the thinking mind, okay? So the thinking mind gives doubts, worries, anxieties, fears, all those kind of things are coming from our thought. They're not real things in tangible things. There's nothing as such which is bringing worry or that particular thing. It is only subjective in relation to me, right? So that thinking mind can bring what we call as, I'm using very loose term as I sometimes talk to my patients, toxins. These are mental emotional toxins that are being created because of that thinking mind, okay? And then the third one is ahamkar, or the ego, which gives the sense of self. We all need that sense of self, but it can have its own toxins like greed and lust and desires. So they are all the coming from the ego or the pride. Who am I? It is coming from who am I? That pride can be less or more, but it is the aspect of our ego, okay? So that is the third aspect of that inner instrument that Ayurveda talks about. And the fourth one is the buddhi, or the intellect, which is the discriminating mind, which understands what is right from wrong, subjective, but yes. Or what is the eternal truth? What should I do? What is that? So all those have their own modes. In all those modes of operating, we can be collecting toxins, so to speak, okay? So from Ayurvedic perspective, they are not who we are. They are something that I have added on to me. I am that soul who is universal and who is operating, who is fundamentally, it has no qualities these like this, but they have been taken on, the worries, the doubts, the pride, the greed. They are all imbalances or toxicity that has come upon us. So in that sense, they are all our disease. And because they are disease, Ayurveda is talking about that, so there are ways of managing those as well. That means we can change, because that fundamentally, if I'm the soul, I have none of those. That's not who I am, okay? But they are the coverings, they are something that is on top of that, so which can be removed as well. And that is the fundamental principle of Ayurveda as we understand the inner instrument, okay? And a lot of thought goes into managing that, especially if we are working on chronic disease or anything really. Whenever, as a practitioner, I get a patient, we need to look at their symptoms, but we also look at what is underlying, what is going on, what is the mode of operation at this point of time for the mind, because ultimately that will give us the direction where will we go, and that can change how we will operate. For example, mind will tell us, I want to have junk food or I want to have a good food. I want to listen to heavy metal music or I want to listen to the meditative music, right? It will, first direction will come from there, and then depending on whether we follow it or not, it will give a sense of direction of the life. Yes? So that is why understanding of the inner instrument and what aspect, if it is the memories that are not working for me, or is it the thinking mind which is going into doubt or worry, or what is going on with the person when I'm doing a consult? I'm looking at that as well, because that will also determine even the things like, if I give them a diet and lifestyle or herbs or any recommendations, how will they be able to follow it? Make sense? As a practitioner, I want to know. I may have very, very effective things that will work for this person's disease process, but what if they are not ready to follow it? Or because of whatever is going on in their mind. So that's not good enough that I give them something, but I also want to make sure that they follow the recommendations, and that will be determined by one of the things is what is going on in their mind. Yes? So you would have had that experience with your patients, clients, that you have given the best things, and if they don't do, they don't do. What do you do? So that understanding that is, and then managing that is part of practice, what a practitioner would do from Ayurvedic perspective. Then another concept that I want to talk about is, which will again be very important from the perspective of mental health, is the three qualities, or in Sanskrit we use the terms gunas, three gunas of the mind, okay? And actually they are not just for the mind. We can also look at later on, we'll talk about that these gunas operate everywhere in the universe. And so that will determine what herbs, etc., we can pick and choose as well. So there are three gunas of the mind: sattva, rajas, and tamas. And what are these? Sattva is the quality of intelligence and goodness, creating harmony, balance, and stability. It provides happiness and contentment of a lasting nature. And that's where we want to go, right? As a human being, whether I've got disease or not, I want to go there, right? Who doesn't want to go there? Yeah? So understanding these three qualities. So sattva is that. Then the second one is the rajas. And rajas is the quality of change, activity, turbulence. It is motivated, in action, aggression, stimulation. It is the force of passion that can cause distress and conflict if out of balance, right? We do need all the three qualities because we do want some action also happening in life, right? So, and so that is required in a certain, and there is a certain kind of balance that we talk about. But, so this, when out of balance, this is what is going on. So one is the balance, equilibrium, harmony is the sattva. And then the second one is, which is bringing that agitation, that is bringing that action. The third one is the quality of dullness and inertia. It brings delusion and ignorance, insensitivity, and loss of awareness. But we still need it. You know, when you want to sleep, you want to have some of that quality as well, right? If the mind is still agitating, it will not be, body will not be functional for long, right? So we need all the three. But, and traditionally they say, and don't ask me how they have reshaped those percentages, they say as a human being that we need 70%, ideally we are 70% sattva, that inner harmony and balance is there, and from there we think of things to do, and then we go into action, and then after the action we need that restfulness of tamas as well, okay? So, for example, if you were a builder or architect, you first want to plan. Then you want to actually build. And then after building, you don't want to be constantly building, right? That, oh, today I break this and change this or whatever. I want to then stop and finish. Rest, right? So we need all those three, okay? So there is a balance that is, for men and women, it is said to be different. So all of us need 70% is the sattva. For men, it is 20% rajas and 10% tamas. And for women, it is said to be 10% rajas and 20% tamas. So that is the balance that they say that is there. So don't ask me why there is a difference, but basically if we look at that, if we are all starting from a state of that inner peace and harmony, and then go and do what we need to do in the world. We need some action, and then after that we need that restfulness, right? Now, but typically now in modern day and age, what is going on? We are not living in that state. Either there is extra that rajas, or there is extra tamas, right? Either we are living a life where there's too much action going on and the mind is agitated and stimulated, and that can lead to a life where we don't feel that we are really enjoying and living our life, right, in balance. Or there is a slothfulness and where we don't even have the idea, what do I need to do in life? How do I need to move on? And there is a dullness. And that is also not letting us live. Yes? Makes sense? At the personal level, when you think about it, or people around, or your clients, or it makes sense that that is how we are living our life at the moment. And it requires a lot of consciousness to keep that balance. It doesn't happen automatically. Yes? Because this is the way life is going on. This is the way everybody is running around. So if I have got too much rajas, I'm also running around doing things. But that is still not giving me a sense of balance and harmony and peace and purposefulness. It is causing stress probably. Or I'm living a life, extreme case, somebody is drug addict, they have no idea what is going on, they are living a life, there is a dullness in life. There is still not fulfilling life happening, yes? So that is how I'm living. But to live that life all the time where I'm feeling This is my purpose, this is I'm fulfilling. Physical body's health is just a small aspect of that. But overall, that sense of living my life fully and wholesomely requires a lot of consciousness. So let us look at what does Ayurveda talk about. And again, as I had said, that it is the mind, we say, even though the soul is the director, but it is the mind who is taking actions, and it has the capacity to take us towards body and senses or towards the soul. And if it is the human mind that is doing all of that, because if you think about it, whatever actions you are taking, before that action, what is there? There is some thought in mind. I have chosen to do, out of all the million things that I could have done, I'm sitting here and listening, right? Before that, there was a thought. Somewhere we prioritized it in the mind first, and then took that action, right? So if our mind is working against us, that is the root cause of suffering, because it's not even coming from outside that we can fix it. It is all happening here first. And some examples of the disorders that Ayurveda remedies have been used for the mental health: ADHD, depression, PTSD, anxiety and stress-related disorders, concentration difficulties, dementia, Alzheimer's, depression, lack of confidence, mood swings, nervous tension, panic attacks, insomnia, stress, and temper tantrums. Now, temper tantrums, for example, is not a disease if you go to a medical practitioner, but it does affect our life, right? Or stress. Who has never been stressed? Ever? I'm not putting my hand up because this is how I experience life, by the way. So we are all, whether somebody labels it as a disease or not, but there is some kind of low-level mental health issues we all have, if I broadly categorize that. Is that right? Would you agree? Yeah? So how do we work, or what do Ayurveda works based on this knowledge or understanding of the 4 aspects of human life: the body, the senses, the mind, and the soul, and understanding of that inner instrument of memory, ego, thinking mind, and feeling mind. So what we do as a practitioner, what I would do is, I would look at all those things, I would look at what are the gunas of the mind, and then what typically I can assume that we are not in balance. Either there is excess of tamas or excess of rajas. Is that, you think it is a valid something that in today's life we can assume? It's just then a matter of noticing how much, what do I think? So one of the key things as a primary healthcare level also we can do is, how do I remove tamas or how do I remove rajas? Because what will happen as we remove those excesses, mind will automatically start going towards the Sattvic guna. Okay? And even though I had said initially that these are the 3 gunas of the mind, but these 3 gunas are present everywhere. So if study of Ayurveda tells me that there are certain herbs that are Sattvic, for example, or there are certain foods that are Sattvic, or there are certain foods that are tamasic or rajasic. So by understanding that, what I would do as a simple thing is, I look at this person has got a lot of, say, rajasic qualities at the moment. And remember, it is only at the moment what is going on. It changes time to time. It's not a fixed thing, right? So if I have got too much somebody presents with there is too much rajas, I can look at, for example, what foods are they eating? And I can see that they're eating a lot of rajasic food, because the herbs and the foods can have that kind of quality as well. So I can say, okay, foods to favor, foods to reduce. Okay, that is one strategy. Okay, and I can say that, for example, they might be doing exercise that are quite aggressive in nature. Can I change to a bit gentler exercise for them? Make sense? Because the moment I understand those concepts, it's easy to see, because everything can be sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. Maybe the kind of music they are listening to. I can maybe guide them towards listening to some meditative music. Yes? Makes sense? That then it is logical what I need to do. Maybe they have too much rajas and they are wearing all the time red color. Right? Now, it might be needed. So if somebody is feeling very dull, I might say, okay, red is good for you right now. Just that color would be, adding to a little bit of fire or a little bit of action. We know those qualities of colors, right? So I can say, okay, if you have too much fire, can you wear pastel colors rather than wearing reds and oranges? Make sense? Right? You don't necessarily need to be a practitioner once you get the access to some of these things. And that's the beauty of Ayurveda that I'm inspired by. If we are teaching this to parents, they might be, or like to families, or, once they understand, it might affect or it might change the quality of life at home. Yes? And I have found interesting, so many fiery people, so many people who are into rajas, and when we talk about them, and they say, oh my God, what will happen to my red sofa? So, okay, put a throw on that. But just simple things like that. You don't think of them as medicine, right? But they are affecting the quality as well in a very subtle way. So Ayurvedic therapies for the mind, a range of strategies that must be tailored to the patient's requirement. So then we also have to see who they are, what are their requirements, what is going on for them, and then give recommendations accordingly. It can be pretty much tailor-made for them, depending on where they are in life. Okay? For example, if I'm talking to a person who is living by themselves, the kind of foods that they can cook could be different from if I'm talking to a mother of 3 having the same symptoms. Yes? So I can tailor-make it for their needs, their requirements, who they are, even though they might have exactly same health issues going on. So we look at behavioral changes, including appropriate diet, lifestyle. What do you think somebody who has got too much rajas going on, what kind of lifestyle can somebody give me 1 or 2 words? What do you think they could be doing in terms of lifestyle? Sorry? Yes, a very busy life. Yes. Shift work. Too much exercise. Some is required, but if it is too much, even that can be there. The kind of music they could be listening to is agitating the mind, right? And who knows, they could be wearing those red and orange colors. I'm one of those at the moment, so I really shouldn't be saying. But you know that those are the kind of things that could be happening, and if I know what I'm looking at and observing what is going on, there could be those small, subtle things that we can add on that will make a difference. And then we can talk about the herbs. We can give the herbs because we know about the quality of herbs, which herbs are sattvic, which herbs are which will bring more tamas, so we understand, so we can guide them accordingly. right? If somebody has got insomnia, I might need to have some tamasic herbs so that they can at least sleep, right? So they have their own reason and purpose, but if I want to awaken that sattva guna, quality of balance and inner harmony, I may give them something else, yes? Then massage is another one to calm down and nourish the nervous system, and Ayurveda offers the Panchakarma, which is another level of treatments that we give, which is the cream of what Ayurveda offers, and starting from a full body massage, but there are other protocols that are included that work as spring cleaning for body and mind. You know, like I was talking about, oh, men are like this. So how many of us, you think, if you think about in your own community, that at the age of 3, I decided my mother is like that, or all men are like that, and it is still leading lives of those people as adults, but we haven't had any chance, and there is no switch to detox that kind of thought, and look at it and see that this is what I'm doing and this is affecting my life. Either I may have no understanding of that, or even if I have understanding of that, is there a switch that I can switch off that anger or resentment and irritation and frustrations that I have had? So can I do that? There's no switch, right? So even if I understand, what do I do after that? So Panchakarma provides some of those benefits from that, because it is about spring cleaning of body and mind. Then meditation and yoga and breathing exercises or pranayama are traditionally part of what recommendations we could give. And then aromas and mantras to prevent mental disorders as well. So aromas, again, I've talked about the colors, but there are smells that can bring certain kind of emotions as well. And for example, frankincense has been traditionally used in many religious practices as well. Christianity, they know about frankincense. Islam knows about frankincense. Hinduism knows about frankincense, because we say that it works on removing the inappropriate energies from the energy system, so it makes more sattva. You know, spirituality is what? It is about bringing more sattva if you start thinking about that. When there is an inner harmony and balance and peace and all that. So frankincense is a good example of that usage of that aroma. And then mantras. Again, Ayurveda has that understanding that we are all energy patterns. You know, we are all compressed energies. And then there are seed sounds that can be used to kind of reboot and set up at a certain frequency level. So there are, you know, the sounds that have been traditionally used. I guess almost everybody will be familiar with the sound of Om. Yes? So it is there to reset or reconnect with that particular energy level, where that becomes like a, you know, the tuning fork that can be used to set up the energy. So, and then there are other mantras which are used to reset that. So that knowledge of energy and we being at energy level and how to change that is done through all kind of ways, whether it is colors or aromas or seed sounds or herbs, all kind of methodology is available. So there are certain herbs of medicinal effect used in Ayurveda. They are called Medya Rasayanas. Rasayana is the tonic, okay? And so these herbs are known and proven to nourish neurological tissues, and these rasayanas are used as nerve system tonic. And I'm just giving you examples of a couple of them that you would be probably more familiar with. There are many more, but ashwagandha and brahmi. Have you heard of both of them? So they are very typical and Medya rasayanas, and they are not only useful for the body, but they are useful for the mind and their nervous system tonics and can be used as such in conjunction with many other things. I would probably not use them alone. I will still work with the diet and lifestyle as well, but that is something that I thought that people would be more familiar with. So these are a couple of examples. Then Panchakarma treatment is an important method to detox and rejuvenate body and mind. And that's something that I just said, that it is like spring cleaning. And even if we are good and we are doing a lot of cleaning and detox, like spring cleaning, even if you clean your home every day, I don't do that, by the way, but still, right? But even if you're cleaning your home regularly, but when you do spring cleaning, there is still a lot more comes out, right? So even if you are looking after yourself well on a day-to-day basis, but doing a spring clean will still get rid of a lot of stuff that Panchakarma, regular practice of or having Panchakarma regularly can provide that for us. Then having Sattvic diet. So we have used the term Sattva, so we can have foods that are known to be Sattvic foods, okay? Introducing components of Sattvic diet, regular meditation, yoga, especially sun salute and pranayama are easy to do, and just one can be used for many, has got that where it provides that balancing of the mind. So you can pick and choose. If you are not even doing a variety of yoga postures, you can still include some of these things. And using appropriate aromas, appropriate kind of music. Right? So we can use these as some of the strategies, because when we see the client, we have seen that there is imbalance, or there are gunas are tamasic or rajasic, and so we want to bring those to a sattva, because there is an innate intelligence in all of us that guides us. You know that sometimes you might be eating food and you already know it doesn't work for you really, but you're still eating, right? Have you ever done that? Yes? Or people who know, for example, who are smoking, they know what they need to do. Or we know how we should behave if we want a loving relationship, right? Who doesn't know at all? But can we practice it all the time? Right? There you go. So we have that knowingness, but we are probably at that time in tamasic or rajasic mode. When you are arguing with somebody and there is somebody telling in their head, this is not good, should not do it, this is going to have a cost, but we still keep on doing it. Familiar? Yes? So there is that knowingness, but Rajas is taking over. I want to win this argument first. Yes? Yes? We are all doing that. That's all of us have that dark side, right? So that is where tamas or rajas might have taken over. It's not a sickness, but it is human behavior, right? But that takes away that sense of wholeness and purposeful life from us. We are not medically sick, labeled as sick, but it is not letting us live powerfully. Yes? And that's what is happening, and that's what Ayurveda as a science of life talks about. We are not waiting till we get sick. We can do things about that right now. And these are some of the things that I would recommend as a practitioner as well. And we talk about, rasayana is the tonic, we also talk about behavioral rasayana. For example, selfless service are important emotional and mental detoxification strategies. This is just one of those. There are a few more that we can add to the list and see. For example, when I'm doing selfless service, not necessarily so that somebody notices it, somebody puts my photo as the biggest donor of, for whatever. I'm just doing because I want to do. anonymously. There's a huge surge of energy. I am becoming internally a giver. I'm expanding myself. As a soul, I'm expanding. It's not about having a name in the paper or anything. Yes? So when somebody is doing that kind of selfless service, it's not for anybody else's benefit except my own, because I'm growing with that. I'm becoming a giver. I'm becoming where I'm present to who I am as a soul. Yes? That is a powerful behavioral tonic. So we can do something like that for us if we understand that, and do it not for somebody else, but for me to have that life's experience which is wholesome and powerful. So Ayurveda describes in intricate detail the development and effect of mental and emotional toxins and their impact on the mind, behavior, choices, and then eventually disease. So what choices I'm making on a day-to-day level? What am I putting in my fridge? What am I putting in my pantry? How I'm talking to somebody who irritates me at a very subtle level. What am I doing? All those are ultimately part of that big thing called life. Yes? And if I want a juicy life, I'm not talking about where I'm kind of just surviving in the life, or not. I'm not even talking about where there is a labeled mental health issue, but I'm talking about at that primary level where I'm just not living my life fully. Something is missing, and something that is taking away or sapping my energy at some level. For somebody outsider, I might be doing all right in life, but I'm feeling I'm not having that good life. Yes? So that is coming from all those subtle things. Maybe I can just give you a couple of examples of my patients without going into the names. It was interesting. The first one is about this guy who was a lawyer. He wanted to be actually an artist. He wanted to be an actor. But, actors, not necessarily all actors can live a good life. So he became a lawyer, making money, doing a lot of work, but still somehow not feeling very happy. And as life presents, then there are always times that are hard. And whenever those hard times came, he kind of is, well, really, this is not what I really wanted to do. You know that sense of where we go to? And so that happens. And then he was finding that he has got, the lawyers, it seems, have plenty of things to read, their brief and all that. So he's sitting there with a book in his hand, but, mind is somewhere else, right? And then he's bringing work home, and it started affecting his relationship because his girlfriend thought he has no time for anything else. Now, is it exceptional kind of thing that I'm talking about here? Or you think a lot of people are living like that? Yeah? Variations, but quite familiar, right? So this guy came and had some treatments, took some herbs. He was coming to us for some time. And then after he had also his Panchakarma, I remember he saying, or his feedback was that he can see at least 30% increase in his productivity. So imagine the things that he was taking 10 hours to do, he's doing in 7 hours, right? That's a huge thing. And he didn't have a disease as such. It was just the life was not bright for him. Or there was another one that this one is a professional, and she had young children. She came from outside of Perth, spent some time because she didn't have any disease, but she just wanted to, she was curious about how does it work, what is happening. And so she said, let me read this one from her. The most significant effects I've noticed have been mental, emotional, and spiritual. I've become more in touch with my love and compassion for myself and others. I feel incredibly grateful for this experience and for my life in general. I feel more connected to others, and I'm looking forward to returning home to shower my family in love. I feel that stressors in my life are less significant, and I have a sense that everything will be okay. No matter what happens in my life, the divine is ever present to guide and support me in my life's journey. Now, this person had come with no really health issues. She was looking after herself quite well. So it's interesting. And where do you think, if you start thinking, for me, it is about getting more connected with their soul. Does it feel like that? Yeah? So that's because what we have done is removed those toxins of whatever was there to a large extent. Now, it's not a magic wand that you do this once and then you are, change into something else. It's like peeling the layers of the onions. So you remove one layer and there's still more to come. That's what happens. But still, if we are in that space, that place, or that frame of mind, then you operate differently. You relate to people differently. The people or things or situations that were irritating to you are suddenly you can just let them go, right? So those kind of things happen, so then people react to that as well, and then life starts changing. So coming back to Ayurvedic therapies for the mind include behavioral changes, including appropriate diet, lifestyle, herbs, massage and Panchakarma, meditation and yoga and breathing exercises, aromas and mantras to prevent mental disorders. These are some of the strategies that we would use. Understanding the concept of the 4 aspects of our life, understanding the inner instrument, understanding the gunas of the mind. These are the things that these are the fundamental things that we look at and understand, and on that basis, we use some of these strategies to bring sattva into life so that they are connected again with that inner self powerfully, and that is guiding them. So that is all that I have to say. Any questions?
How would someone go if they didn't really like massage or anything like that? They didn't like people touching them?
If they don't like massage, there are other things that are available. You can use herbs, you can use diet, you can use lifestyle. And I can tell you, like, being a practitioner, I knew about certain herbs, and I'll make some herbal oils doing certain things, and I would put them in the food. And I know, I've heard when my children were younger, I've heard the comment, "Mom, I know you're spiking my food." But, that's the something that they have because their mom knows about certain things, and obviously as a mother also, not just as a practice. I don't want them to come to my practice with some those kind of issues, even though I know life will give them, but I want them to be connected to their higher self so they can make right decisions in their life. So I don't mind as a mother spiking their food with some herbs. Okay, anything else?
What's the youngest patient? Like, I know you mentioned temper tantrums there.
I have had patients, of course, parents bringing them, 2 onwards. Last 2 weeks ago, I had someone who was 8-year-old, and he's talking to his parents in a way that they are concerned about. But I've had children. In fact, if you know those things, some of those things you can do from birth. Like, for example, my own children got, and traditionally in India they say, having the massage. I was using the massage, and they said, first 2 years, if you give them every day. That's a lot of work for the mother, but in the longer term, if you don't want to be worried even when they are 50, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, 11 years, 12 years, 13 years, 14 years, 15 years, 16 years, 17 years, 18 years, 19 years, 20 years, 21 years, 22 years, 23 years, 24 years, 25 years, 26 years, 27 years, 28 years, 29 years, 30 years, 31 years, 32 years, 33 years, 34 years, 35 years, 36 years, 37 years, 38 years, 39 years, 40 years, 41 years, 42 years, 43 years, 44 years, 45 years, 46 years, 47 years, 48 years, 49 years, 50 years, 51 years, 52 years, 53 years, 54 years, 55 years, 56 years, 57 years, 58 years, 59 years, 60 years, 61 years, 62 years, 63 because we want them to be having a certain kind of life, is worth doing. So if you know, you can start certain things from birth or, from very young age. But as a patient, I have had 2 years old as well.
When it comes to diet, do we crave things that put us further out of balance? Or do we
Can happen. Can happen. It happens both ways. I've seen people who are very stressed. They, for example, innately go towards sweet foods. But I know sweet foods bring some kind of nourishment or balance to, I haven't introduced the term here, but vata dosha. So they are vata pacifying foods, a lot of sweet foods. Only thing is we would want to choose the healthy versions of those sweet foods. So instead of cakes or something, I would rather that they have dates, for example, or resins or those kind of things. But it can be that, or it can be the vicious cycle of that I am going through this and I'm eating that food that brings more imbalance and so on. Yeah? Okay, thank you very much.